Hi, my name is Annabeth Smith,
Hi, my name is Angeles Afa.
and we are Group 3 for the Senior Seminar in Applied Behavior Analysis. At the beginning of the semester, we were given a project to find a socially significant target behavior that we have been struggling with as individuals in the group, find a way to improve that behavior through conditioning, through ABC analysis, or any other applied behavior analysis tool that can improve our behavior. We had many options and we decided on a socially significant behavior that has shown dramatic changes over the semester. And we're going to be talking about that now. So the first thing we had to do was find an identification of the problem. What could we be working on? We had many options. We talked about biting nails, picking at hangnails. We talked about exercise. And really, what I felt we needed to work on, and Roxy also felt we needed to work on, was during our attempts to study, we'd find ourselves looking at our phones or social media or receiving text messages. And it was honestly really problematic for me. It was an issue that I still struggle with now, even after the treatment that we've gone through in the intervention. So these issues did cause a lot of socially significant problems, not just during study, but throughout the semester. It decreased my GPA, it had issues with me turning things in on time, and it also had issues with me actually comprehending the material. So even if I did well on the tests, if you asked me to explain it, I probably couldn't because I really just understood enough to answer the questions. And so the goal of this was to be able to study for 30 minutes without looking at our phones. And in order to do that, it would require a lot of work. And so we're going to talk about how we got into that process of change. So the first thing we had to consider was the ethics of this. While there aren't a lot of issues that we can look into for this, there are still concerns. For instance, notifications are necessary for emergencies. We both have families, some of whom are elderly, some of whom are young, and we both have work. And I personally deal with a disability, and this disability requires me to get in touch with doctors. There has been a shortage of my medication, and I have been back and forth on the phone for weeks and months trying to get a hold of what I need to basically function. And so for us to just completely turn off notifications was not a great idea. Keeping phones in another room was not super reasonable or feasible for us to do. And so rather than putting devices away or turning them off, we put them on silent. So if something was necessary, we could look, but we didn't have to. This was to decrease temptation, and it also allowed us to reach the things we needed to if necessary. So we did a research summary article at the beginning of this semester. We went over 3 different articles, how they were significant to our behaviors, and how we thought that we could apply what we learned from these articles into these behaviors. So with our behavior of studying, we knew that we wanted to use a fixed time schedule. We knew that we wanted to decrease distraction, and we knew that we wanted to focus on duration, frequency of looking at our phones, and how long we could go, again, duration of studying. So the first essay that I found was the effects of explicit timing on math performance. So this was a study done back in 1970 or somewhere within that decade, which is interesting that the study was done so long ago, but is still relevant today. The first thing we have to note is that there was an independent variable. What they were trying to find was how explicit timing would affect behavior and improvement on math tests. And so they had an entire group of kids, I believe in the second grade, and they had time for testing. But the way they handled this time was separate for each individual process. So first they found a baseline of how many questions were answered correctly with a math test booklet. These baselines were not timed. But then they decided to do intervention 1, where they would get notified every 30 seconds for the 30 minutes of these tests. And then they measured the overall correct rate, local correct rate, and accuracy of their answers. Then they would do the same thing, but they would only announce every minute. And this was to see if children would notice the pressure or use that time more wisely based upon the timing that they were reminded. We used this tactic when we used stopwatches and timers during our study time. Now, what they found in this study was that the performance in treatment one was improved. The children did better in their accuracy, they were more speedy in their performance, and then the second baseline that they did was still slightly higher than the original baseline, which shows that it can be generalized, even if it's not necessarily done in the same way. And that brings us to our next topic. Article 2, the effects of time reinforcement schedules on the resurgence of problem behavior. This was personally my favorite article that I found. I loved the variety of participants they had. I thought it was very relevant for me because some of the things that these children struggle with are things that I'm still dealing with now. And using fixed time reinforcement schedules was very interesting for what we were doing. So in this, they did multiple independent variables. So the first thing that they were going to do, the overarching independent variable, was that they were going to be doing reinforcement delivering following a DRA using fixed time. So first, they used a functional assessment, and they also used the color of the experimental shirt. And they used the shirt as a signal for how they were going to manage giving this functional assessment. This preference assessment was done for 4 participants between the ages of 5 and 10. They each dealt with different disabilities, including ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, bipolar disorder, autism spectrum disorder, and moderate mental retardation. So each child was given a 5-minute DRA session, and there were 16 sessions. There were 16 sessions in a block where the experimenter would stand in the doorway. There would be a multiple stimulus without replacement preference assessment, and then there would be a functional analysis using one of the behavior conditions and a concurrent preference assessment. They used all these varieties of assessments to see what created the greatest impact of reinforcement for these children. They then used that reinforcement during a fixed time schedule to see if they could decrease the resurgence of problem behavior. And with this reinforcement, they found that there was a decrease in resurgence, and it created a more socially appropriate behavior system for these children that increased their schoolwork and improved their overall health. Now, Roxy is going to continue on and finish up the rest of the presentation, and I'll hop on at the last bit. Roxy, you can just let me know when to switch to the next slide.
Thank you. Okay, you can change the slide now. Okay, so for Article 3, we have the measuring and reducing college student procrastination. This was actually the study that I chose, the journal, and this article actually measures and observes how to reduce student procrastination, and it also examines how the procrastination levels will go up when the material was available in a non-contingent way. For this, they use the independent variable schedule of online practices, quizzes, and the dependent variable was procrastination in the study time, which is related to what the behavior that we chose. And this is related in the way that sometimes when we were studying, you procrastinate a lot and you say, oh, I'm going to take a little break. You stand up for 10 minutes. And if the material is hard for you, you might find yourself, looking for the answers online just to get out of the way. And this is an escape method. So for the methods in this study, it was assignments and study material that was either presented contingently or non-contingently. The dates of completed work were studied. So depending on the times that the teachers would post the material, they would see if the students would actually turn in the work in time, or to see if they were looking for the material online and then turning it in after that date. In the findings, the studying was distributed more evenly when each piece of material was contingent on another one being completed. For this, it was also a multiple design, and as I said before, results are significant because they can be used not only for students in school settings, but also in any other setting as our library, maybe Starbucks when you go to study, the home, which is where we used to find ourselves like studying most of the time since the content was remote. And yes, this can definitely be used in multiple settings. So for the next slide, we have the method that we chose for the tool that we chose to record our behavior, and this was the FAST, which is the functional assessment screening tool. This is a very common method to record behaviors. I actually use it in my workplace a lot, my supervisors do. So with this, it finds environmental and physical factors for problem behaviors. And the main factors for our behavior, it was for Annabeth, it was the escape and stimulation. Sometimes we might not know the function of a behavior, but based on the actions and what is observable in the ABA field, we know that some behaviors, by what you observe, you can say, oh, this is escape, or maybe they did this to have access to a tangible, for example, which is the phone, or they do it for stimulation, depending, it could be sensory. It has a lot of meanings. And for me, in my case, it was for sensory stimulation, attention, or preferred items. For me, my preferred item, of course, in that case, it was my phone. I was tired of studying and I didn't want to do the entire time. And I wanted to have access to my phone. Um, for this, I tried different methods. Like there's are certain apps on the phone, like locking the phone from a certain time to another to see if I would study for longer. I would remove also the electronic devices, not only my phone, but also my laptop, because if I could, I would have had, like access to my laptop and just stop studying completely. So for me, okay, so now we're gonna go over the consequence strategies. For the first one, we have that the chosen strategies serves as a positive reinforcement for alternative behaviors such as self-management and stay on task, and at the same time reducing the occurrence of using electronic devices during studying session. Second one, we have self-monitoring and self-regulation. It teaches the clients these techniques to track how much they engage in escape before studying session is over. A perfect example is to set a timer or maybe an alarm. Third, we have positive reinforcement for other behaviors is when the client engages in any behavior other than the maladaptive. And of course, you provide an immediate reinforcement and let them know why the reinforcement is being given. The strategy provides an increase in other behaviors and reduced maladaptives. Next, we have the replacement behavior being targeted for increase is the access to coping mechanisms. It helps to manage the time without engaging on screen time and take appropriate breaks before going back to study. Maybe take into consideration stress relief objects such as a stress ball that it can be used to relieve anxiety and increase concentration. Next, we have data, as you can see here on the table. The fact that most times where the incidents occurred in the baseline data provided suggests that the behavior was very common and would happen very often, even before the treatment plan started. So this indicated that the need for a treatment plan and the baseline shows that. So with that, we conclude our presentation. I hope that you guys liked it. We did the best we could to make it as easy as possible to understand. So thank you so much and have a great day.